And did I ever cry on my job? I cried all the time. And starting salary at that time was about 35 to 40,000 pounds. Got into the internship, and this is me, young girl in the city. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you are doing well. Today I wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight into my career and kind of education history. And I feel like I've mentioned what I've done before, but I've never really done a video on it. So today I'm going to give you guys a little bit of insight into that part of me. And I do feel like, you know, someone's career and their experiences gives you a little bit of insight into who they might be as a person, because I'm going to tell a couple of stories as I go. And for those of you who, I don't know where you've been, you've probably seen a lot of the stuff that has been happening stateside, and there is so much injustice that is going on. And I am here to stand up and say, you know, I am totally here with the movement of Black Lives Matter. And yes, all lives do matter, but right now there's one big issue, and it is the despairing treatment of particular groups of people that are black. So right about now, that's what we're gonna scream and shout about. But I kind of wanted to do this video as a video to give people just a bit of inspiration and to feel slightly empowered, and just to stand in solidarity with my brothers and sisters in the USA as well. And I'm gonna leave just some info in the description box as well. So my first real job was actually selling Better Wear catalogs, and that was basically this catalog that you used to put through doors of like neighbors and like streets around your area, which I did when I was about 13-14. One of the neighbors basically was doing child labor and recruiting the children in the area to go and distribute catalogs, taking the orders, and then distribute the goods after. So I wouldn't really call that a career, but that was the first thing I did, and that was the only thing I had on my CV before I was 16 to when I got my first job. So my first job, like in a shop, was in retail, and I worked in House of Fraser, specifically in the brand called Coast, which was basically bridesmaids dresses slash just, I don't know, prom slash, you know, just random, I call it grandma wear now. So I used to have to go in with like a long satin skirt and like just a button down cardigan and that kind of thing, and I always felt very grandma looking, but it was, you know, high quality and quite expensive. But when I moved to university, I moved into Selfridges in Manchester, and I worked there but under the same brand, and I worked there basically through uni. Now in my last 2 years of uni, I was just sick and tired of working. I just didn't like working, and I just like, I've got to quit. So I quit my job, and I was doing hair. So you guys do know that I've always been someone who's been doing hair extensions or hairstyling for people, and I absolutely loved it. And I had my own clients who would come to my house, and I had a client who would come from Birmingham for me to do her hair. So I was, you know, one of those living room hairstylists. So that's where my kind of love for hair kind of started and always was. So those aren't really careers, but they're some of the ways that I made a living. So I know that so many of you guys are university students who watch me, and you realize you've got to do what you've got to do. So if you couldn't get the retail job, then you might need to do a little something for yourself. Now when I got my first out of school career jobs, I firstly did an internship. So I'm happy to say I worked at Merrill Lynch, and I used to always not like to say, because actually when I first started YouTube, I was interning at Merrill's at the time, and I was very embarrassed, one, to be doing YouTube, and obviously didn't want to jeopardize my career chances by anybody finding out at Merrill's that I did this. And so I worked at Merrill's within investment banking. Specifically, I worked within technology, and I did not do a technology degree. I did an accounting degree. So one of my friends, he was super smart, and he already had his summer internship, and he told me to go to a networking dinner for women at Merrill Lynch, and they invited students, and he basically had his job, and he was really smart, and he told me, Patricia, go there and go there really keen. So me and him had like a sit down talking session. We were talking about the markets, we were talking about technology, we were talking about all this stuff. And then when I came to the Women in Technology networking dinner, I came there prepared. So there were all these other female students there, and I came like can I ask a question about the financial markets? Where do you see? I was that girl. I came in like ready to just let everybody know that I had arrived, and I really know that that made me stand out, because after that I then remember the recruiter reaching out to me and talking to me a little bit more than I felt like she maybe talked to some of the other people, because at that dinner I really made an effort to kind of stand out, and I had a notepad and pen, and most of the other girls kind of were like looking at me like, what does this girl know that we don't know? But obviously I had had a bit of schooling. So my bit of advice to any of you guys who might be going to summer internships, or you want to get an internship, there may be networking dinners or events that are happening. Go to them, and go to them keen. And you have to understand that for the internship that I was on, 7,000 students applied, or I think it was like massive amounts of students applied, and there were 100 interns. So the reality of this situation was really real. It was extremely competitive, and I knew that it was competitive, and you do entrance exams and entrance tests before you get onto the internship. And I did my test, and during that time, and I did the it was the numerical exam, and I flopped. When I tell you I flopped, I left that room crying, because I knew that I had failed. I knew that I missed certain things. I knew that I forgot to study for certain stuff that came up during the entrance exam. So my next piece of advice is, if there's a test, practice and prepare for every last bit of it. So yeah, I failed it, and they came back to me, the recruiter came back to me and said to me, Patricia, you failed the test. And I was just like, no, because I had all my hopes on this internship. And I'll be honest with you, this was the only internship I had applied for, because I was that kind of girl. But she basically said to me, Patricia, I want you to come back in, and I want you to do the test again. And at that point in time, I realized it was because I had created that network and that bond with the recruitment team, as well as some of the other women in the business who had remembered me and really wanted me to come on board, that I was given the opportunity to take the test again. And obviously I did the test again, and I passed, and then I got onto the internship. And I got into the internship, and this is me, young girl in the city, and starting salary at that time was about 35 to 40,000 pounds. So that's probably about 70,000. No, at the time it was about 70,000 US dollars. So for a 21-year-old, that was like, we're living, and you got a 5k sign-on bonus. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So obviously I was, getting a lot of money for someone who was so young, and working in the city, living that life. And basically the concept of that kind of industry is work hard, play hard. And on my internship, the team I ended up being in, I was there was no other interns in my group or in my team. There were very few women, and within my team, I really felt like I didn't fit in. Right, when you just feel awkward. I was so awkward, so quiet, so shy, so reserved. And I remember that the feedback I kept getting was that I needed to come out of my shell more. Patricia that you guys see now needed to come out of her shell, that I wasn't gelling with the team, and that they didn't feel like they know me. So when it came to the internship group, the internship intake, most people knew who I was, because I was loud and fun, and take me to the rave, I'm #1 on the dance floor, busting the move. I was there for it. But when it came to being in that professional environment, because I was so unsure of myself, I didn't know what I was doing or if I was good, I just was like, I kind of panicked. And but I always worked hard, and so I got lots of high rating and grading in regards to the work and the quality of the work that I do. But the downgrading that I had was that I wasn't connecting with the team. Anyway, I tried to improve that, so I would go out on the work drinks, even though I felt so awkward because I was so young, and it was just kind of just these 40, 50-year-old guys, and everyone's got wife and kids, and they go to I don't know, some random places on holiday, and I'm just thinking, what we're going to do in Oxford Circus that weekend. But eventually, you know, I made it and connected with the team really well, and then I ended up getting the full-time role. We then did induction in New York, so that was the first time I went to New York and had an amazing time. That was the time when my wig fell off. That was the time when everyone found out about my YouTube channel, and I almost closed my YouTube channel because I was the joke of my internship class because of it. But I made it through and I started working. And I kind of worked with the same team, but you know, people had moved around and there were other people there, and the same issue happened. Was a case of I just wasn't confident. So you guys see me now as confident, but when I was working, I just felt so small. I just felt like this is a big world of all these older people. You know, I was, you know, the youngest girl on the team, and there's someone who's been there for 15 years and someone who's been there for 8 years and someone else, and then there's me who doesn't have a clue. But I had the most amazing mentor, and she was just like, Patricia, let me tell you, this is how you've got to do it. This is how you've got to be. Push, push, push. If you don't know how to do something, teach yourself to do it. Ask questions, pull someone over and ask them, how do I do this thing? And she was the one who really pushed me to, because I used to say, well, I don't know how to do it. And I'd sit there and I'd be so scared to ask someone because I didn't want to disturb them and they're busy doing their work. But she was just like, just ask, just ask, just ask. And I started doing it, and I really felt like I learned more. I had a horrible senior manager. I don't know if you can, yeah, he won't see this. He was horrible. And did I ever cry on my job? I cried all the time. I'd come home crying because he was very condescending and made you feel very stupid. And one time, like, we were in the middle of the meeting and I just kind of went, just, you know, you know, when that one tear just falls down your face. I had that moment where I was just like, you know when you can't say yes anymore. You're like, I just don't know what I'm doing, and you're just rude, and you're just really impacting me in a negative way, and I just felt awful. And I remember after that he kind of was a bit softer on me, but there was always an awkwardness. After I think it was 2.5 years, I was then made redundant. They were doing loads of cuts in the bank and I was one who got cut. But now looking back, I can totally see why I was made redundant, because at the end of the day, if you don't really connect with your team, they're not going to keep you on when times are hard. They're going to let go of the person who they don't feel the closest to, and that's what happened to me. And then I got recruited by Deloitte Consulting to work there, and I'm going to tell you that Deloitte was the hardest job of my life. Right? That job was hard. I'm going to go into it, but I'll tell you that I learned the most from that experience. Like, it wasn't even long. I was there for 1.5 years because it was hard. And but what I learned there is what I apply to this very day. So with consulting, you have to come in and kind of know what you're talking about, because what you do is you advise clients. So you can't go to the client like, I don't know. No, there's none of that. You come to the client like you know everything. And the reason it was hard because the hours were hard. You had to work very hard, very intense. You might work on a bid and you might be there till like 2 o'clock in the morning. Everybody hates being on a bid, which is basically a proposal. You might be there from 2, you'll be up there till 7. You're dotting every T and you're crossing every I, and you're delivering to your client. And what they end up doing is that the director kind of ends up submitting your work and analyzing your work, but you and someone else do everything. I remember with me, I can't remember the girl, it was like Ling, me and Ling. It was just me and Ling just eating our lunch on this proposal for like days till 2 o'clock in the morning. We were just delirious at that point in time. But the issue is you don't complain. You come in, you work, you come in at 7, you do that bid, you do that proposal, because that director is going to ask for it on the table and he's going to rip it to shreds. Like, it was nuts how they were. They picked everything apart, and then I learned to like really be really critical about work, but in a good way. And then what else happened? And then another thing is then when you go onto client site, and I ended up, you know, going to quite senior people. And I remember somehow I ended up being at a meeting with the head of Camden Council by myself. And they basically threw me in, and I was advising him on how to improve his business analysis capability. Meantime, I've been working there for 3 months. I didn't even know how to spell business analysis capability. I'm joking. I did know. But I was, this guy, me, by myself, and then his team. And I was like, so, in my opinion, I think that, going through my document, sweating, not having a clue. So yeah, with consulting, you basically got thrown in at the deep end. And what you didn't know, you learned. And I ended up working on 2 to 3 really good projects with really good clients like that were like global impacting. But I remember it just being very, very intense. I would eat my dinner at work. Once it hit 9 o'clock and you were still in the office, it meant that you could have dinner and have dinner ordered, and I'd be there and I'd be eating my dinner and I'd be just going to the toilet. And this was just after I got married, calling my husband and be like, I'm here again, I've got to stay late again, and just being quite upset that I wasn't able to live my life. And then, you know, sometimes even on the weekends, it's like I've just got to go do some extra work, and it was very hard. I do think that consulting's quite a hard job. Eventually I was just like, for me, this was not for me. However, I will say again, the experience that I gained at Deloitte was experience that I apply to now. Definitely the just the intensity is why I work so intensely now, because you either sink or swim. Eventually, when you have enough years of experience, you basically have people calling your phone, headhunting you to work at different banks and different firms. And so I ended up getting this call from Bank of Tokyo, which probably again was one of my best, like one of the best places to work. And by this point in time, I was very confident in myself. I was very confident in my experience. I was very confident in my knowledge. So the difference between 1 year and 4 years work experience is massive. And then I got that job offer. I went in and I met the manager, and he was senior executive director, something like that. And I was just like, I want to work for this guy, because he was amazing. And I never knew that managers could be like this. He was very calm. He knew his work so much. He was very responsive to people as individuals, and his energy was so soft that I couldn't say no to the job. I had already said, I'm not going to work anymore. And that offer came, and I wasn't so sure about it. And I met him. I was like, you know, I want to work for you. I want to work for your team because you're amazing. This is how people make a big difference where you work. And it was a Japanese bank. So Japanese banks have an amazing culture. They're very respectful, and there isn't this sense of rush, right here, right now, whatever. So I came with my consulting intensity, and everyone was very respectful, very calm, very level-headed. And again, I learned so much from being in that environment. And because I had found my voice, I was able to bring so much to the table at that job. And I always felt like my opinion was so valued there. And it's one of those things that was made such a big difference. Bank of Tokyo was my last official in the city career girl job, and was my favorite because I met some of the best people. I still speak to them now, and I learned a lot, but I gave so much. And I mean, I say this to encourage that, number one, the first job I ever got, I didn't exactly have the qualifications. I didn't have enough UCAS points to even do the application, but I did the application anyway, and I failed the exam. But because I had connected with the people, and people is really what matters at the end of the day, I got the role, right? And I firstly wasn't very confident. I wasn't very good at my job when I first started out, and that's okay. The reality is that everyone starts from somewhere, and confidence comes with time. So the more I worked, the more confidence I had, and by the third job I had, I was like, here comes Patricia. Like, they'll probably roll their eyes. Here comes Miss Opinionated again. And yeah, I just say this to just kind of give you guys a bit of insight into my career, and that everything I have today is based on a lot of hard work, sleepless nights, late nights, applying and teaching myself a lot of things. And I do think that those are some of the keys to being successful in any career or business that you ever want to do. So guys, that is my career story, and I do feel like it was a little bit indulgent for me, I don't know, maybe it's, you know, my YouTube channel, some days I've got to reminisce. People have been saying that, you know, they don't feel like they're seeing me. Well, here's a bit of me, here's a bit of my story. You know, it was nice to have a little chat, but also provide some insight into myself. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to do a tutorial,